the Message Bible says that burn with passion. Where it says burn with passion in the New American Standard. Sorry, I'm kind of nervous. In the New American Standard, where it says burn with passion, the Message Bible says sexually tortured. The Message Bible says it's better to marry than to be sexually tortured. Some of you didn't even know that was in the Bible. Like, I'm being sexually tortured. It's like, that's right, you're supposed to be until you get married. Then you'll be tortured a different way. I'm just joking. Sorry. That was not funny. I wasn't funny. I met Kathy when she was 12. It's a true story. She's laying on a raft, and I met her when she was 12. She didn't look 12. She was very mature for her age and all. And I got engaged to her when she was 13. That's a true story. And we got married when she was 17. So we've been married like forever. You know, one of the things I think is important to realize is that, I think we're going from the talk. You know the talk? Are you guys all right? We're going from the talk to having a healthy sexual society. Like in a Jewish culture, you ever heard, like in the Bible, you guys you've heard the Bible? I mean, you've read the Bible, you've read like some of the Bible. Well, it says that have you ever read the passages where it talks about how the bridegroom or the bride come out of the bridal chamber? Well, you know what the bridal chamber is? Let me tell you. First of all, weddings lasted a week in the Bible. That's why Jesus made gallons of wine instead of quarts. Well, plus he brought his 12 disciples with him, so it might have something to do with it. You know, do you ever read the Bible and ask yourself questions like, how did Mary know that Jesus made wine unless he was doing it at home? Anyway, just a thought. So the weddings lasted a week. And this is how they do a wedding. They would exchange vows. First of all, the whole family would come. It was a family affair. The whole family would come, and all the men would bring their weapons. And that's a true story. And they'd lay their weapons out in front of the bride and groom while they're saying their vows. And so they would repeat their vows, much like we do, and then they would they would repeat their vows. Did I say that part? You repeat yourself when you get older. So they would repeat their vows. But the reason why they did it in front of everyone is because the marriage, the covenant was not ever supposed to be between a man and a wife. It was supposed to be between two families. That's why kings would marry other kings' daughters, and they would build a covenant relationship with two nations. So that's why the family came. And the reason why they put the weapons up front is because the family, when they made a covenant with one another, see, this is what's really interesting. The man would take on the part of he would add the woman's last name to his name, and she, of course, would add his last name to her name. So Kathy's maiden name is Talbert. So I would be Kris Talbert Vallottin, and she would be Kathy Vallottin Talbert. And we would join families. Are you following me? And the reason why the men would bring those weapons is because once we made a covenant together, the men, the families, those tribes would say, anyone who is against you is against me. And the family covenant was, see, what would it be like if we made a covenant where our whole family was committed to help preserve our marriage? Fight for our marriage. I don't know if you got that. But then they would go, so after they exchanged vows, they would go into the bridal chamber. Into the bridal chamber. Now, you got to get this part. There was no celebration yet. They exchanged vows. They would go into the bridal chamber, which was like a curtained room. And everyone would wait outside as they consummated the marriage. You know what consummate the marriage? Now, this was not a X-rated or over 21 event. This was a family affair. Little children would be there, all the way high school, all the way to adults. You got to get this part. And after they consummated the marriage, they would take the sheet that should have blood on it. Are you following me? Do you need more detail? And they would take the sheet, the bride and groom would take the sheet, and they would throw the sheet over the top of the bridal chamber wall with blood on it. And then the celebration would start. Now, you can imagine that if you're a little child and you see a bloody sheet that just got thrown over the bridal chamber wall and you're 3 years old, you're like, how they got in a fight already? Must have fell down on the way to the bed, you know. And what happened is that you learned from the time you were little that God wanted marriage to come out of covenant. That's why he gave a woman a hymen, so that the covenant could be made before children were conceived, so that children always came out of a blood covenant. So when you were little, you got to get this. When you were little, see, when you're 2, 3, 4 years old, see, no one has, see, you don't need to talk because you've been to 20 weddings by the time you get to your teen years, and over, you know, your parents are, you see you can still remember the first time you went to a wedding and they put the bloody sheet over it. I mean, you got to understand that would be a talking point, a conversation piece for your little one. And what happened is that children grew up with this idea that the covenant, that sex belonged inside a covenant, because they would celebrate. Listen, because they would celebrate. What were they celebrating? The trophy. See, then they would celebrate for a week that they actually kept. Listen, they actually kept their virginity. It was like what happened after the Super Bowl. They had a big party, and they're like, these guys made it all the way from the battlefield to the honeymoon suite. Look at this. They did it. Now we can dance. Because Jewish culture understood that virginity was a trophy to be given to your lover. And when you got your trophy all the way from the battlefield, you know, you worked and you sweated and you warred and you got it all the way. You had hard days, you had hard nights, you had times when you didn't know if you were going to make it. And when you finally got all the way to the honeymoon suite, everybody was like, dude, you rock! You did it! And the bigger the struggle, the greater the reward. Some of you have a little tiny sex drive. Awesome. Some of you have, oh, raging bull. You're going to get big trophy. I don't know if that part's true, but anyway. See, God gave a woman a hymen, and a hymen is a sac of blood inside of her vagina, and that it's interesting because, you know, like if you break your arm, it grows back. You know, it grows back. Yeah, it grows back. You can cut it off, it goes right back. It's like a starfish. You probably don't know that. That's what happens when you live in a supernatural culture. You don't like your... You don't like your face, you just cut your head off and do a new one. That part definitely not true. If you break your arm, it heals. If you break your leg, it heals. You cut yourself, it heals. But what's really strange is that once the hymen's broken, it never repairs itself. And for years, scientists have been trying to figure out, like, okay, why is there a sac of blood that never repairs itself inside of a woman? And, you know, we figured it out years ago. and that is that God wants marriage